All right, excellent. All right, guys, here we go. So we have about an hour, and I'm hopefully not going to run over. So I'm going to give you kind of an introduction to Salesforce Marketing Cloud, a very short demo within the Marketing Cloud. Then Sarah's going to come back on, answer some basic migration support questions, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So as you know, this is largely an introduction webinar, kind of a kickoff, and so we'll try to cover what we can and answer what we can, and then we'll obviously talk to you individually for more specific questions, but let me go through here. So Salesforce Marketing Cloud, this is our introduction. Our agenda, like I said, we're going to give you kind of an overview, what's different about doing Salesforce Marketing Cloud through DS. A little bit about what we did with the templates in terms of responsive design and what that means. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to actually go into our version of Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And then Sarah will come back in for discussion about the migration timeline off of Lyris HQ, kind of the process that we're envisioning, kind of the next steps, where to go after this call, and then we'd be happy to answer as much as we can about your questions from the webinar. All right, so kind of recap, we always kind of go back to this, as we mentioned, so from our digital marketing products and services, digital services, we like to think of it as kind of 3 steps or a pyramid of sorts. They're components, so you know, it always starts with that base of CRM or constituent relationship management databases, or what stations typically call a donor database. That's really where all of your data lives, your donor history. That's sort of the base of everything, right? So we consider that one component. The second component that we rolled out last year was our marketing forms, which is what we think of as the capture stage in terms of digital marketing for public media. And it's really where you're capturing all different kinds of revenue. Most often, our donation forms is at that process. And now that we've rolled out marketing forms, we're ready to roll out what we like to, the stage that we call campaigning, which is now that you have a place to collect and capture donations, it's time to kind of turn on the campaigning. And obviously, you've all been doing that. This is sort of our introduction to what we think is the best tool for the job, and that's Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And it largely is based on the idea that now that you have your forms and you have your CRM or your donor database, use campaigns, email, social, mobile, to really drive engagement, whether it's to revenue for donations or to drive engagement with the content on your website, or to drive events, offline events, to communicate with your community. All of those are campaigns. So that's what we're talking about. This is, as we mentioned, digital marketing. We think of it as a suite. They're components. You could use 1, 2, 3, none. It's completely flexible on your end, but that's how we kind of tend to think of our products and services in one of these 3 buckets. So a little bit about Salesforce Marketing Cloud. You may have heard of it in the past. We refer to it as ExactTarget because that's what it is. ExactTarget was an email service provider that Salesforce bought. They were founded in 2000. They're based in Indianapolis, and then Salesforce bought them in 2014. We don't really consider them an email service provider. It's more along the lines of marketing campaign software, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Primarily, most stations that we work with, and ourselves included, really use the email capabilities because that's largely what we all know. But in terms of planning for future campaigns, you're really looking at campaign software, which is why they call it the Marketing Cloud. What level of service this is, it's always hard to define the buckets of different email providers and marketing software providers. We would say this is largely on the level of enterprise level service providers. So if you've been looking at very similar to Lyris HQ, Eloqua, Responsive, there's a couple of others on that level. It really depends on the services and packages you have, but we consider Salesforce Marketing Cloud is really on an enterprise level service. It's not a budget ESP. And the last thing we wanted to kind of mention, despite the fact that it's called Salesforce Marketing Cloud, since it is ExactTarget, that they had clients outside of Salesforce, it's not a requirement to have Salesforce. It's not a requirement for Salesforce to be your donor database or your CRM to use Salesforce Marketing Cloud. They have lots of clients on different platforms, but obviously they are using that very strong Salesforce brand, but we just wanted to point that out, that it's not a requirement to use SMC. So why are we offering Salesforce Marketing Cloud? What did we look at? How did we get here? So, like I said, we were really looking for not just an ESP. Lyris HQ had a lot of functionality that was beyond just email as well. We didn't go deep into them, but it's on that level. We wanted something that was more of a robust marketing campaign software. So not just sending to a newsletter, even though that's a primary use case for you. We want to have a platform that grows for your campaign needs in the future. We looked at a lot of excellent budget email service providers out there. Unfortunately, from our standpoint, and it kind of affects how we are able to offer things, there really wasn't anyone that could offer us an enterprise level package that would give us the support model for supporting a variety of stations at different spectrums, whether you're small or large. Budget email service providers just don't really have the functionality of managing email and services on that level. So that's primarily why we stayed within the framework of the Lyris HQ's, Eloqua's, Salesforce marketing campaign software model. The other thing is we're pretty familiar with ExactTarget and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. They've been basically powering NPR's newsletters for the past few years. So we're very familiar with the team and the software itself and some of the capabilities that's available because we use it. And then finally, Salesforce, just as a general and a company, I mean, they're investing heavily in the marketing platform. It's not something that we feel, it's a smaller company that can't grow and they're not going to invest in the software and they're not going to be leaders in campaign software. They also just have an amazing, the ExactTarget staff that they essentially bought, they just have years of knowledge and support from marketing professionals. So there's a lot of knowledge there that we can borrow and take advantage of in public media. So a little more, again, it comes up a lot, what's the difference between a budget email provider and an enterprise level? Couple of things. One is deliverability, very quickly. Typically on a budget, you're sharing your IP or what the email goes out with all of their clients. That's one of the ways they manage their costs. It's probably not a big deal on a small list, but it can sometimes delay your deliverability. An enterprise ESP typically have a dedicated IP. NPR has the IP for the service. So you're less likely to get delayed in email delivery. Some of the big corporate sites and Gmail and such, it's all about your reputation of your IP. So you get that with enterprise. Budget ESP, from a list management standpoint, if you're sending one newsletter to one list, you don't have a lot of complex segmentations, you don't want to personalize a lot with different audiences, it's probably fine with a budget ESP, at least initially with a small list. When you get to be a larger list, and you want to do different audience segments like renewals and multiple renewals and welcome series and different personalized emails that go to different types of your audiences, that's when you're really looking at an enterprise model. Also, as your list grows, you're probably looking at an enterprise model. Last thing, from a basic service and support, typically budget ESP is one way they keep it cheap as well, is self-serve support. You're looking usually at a knowledge base to try to figure out things on your own, which is all great, but at some point you'll probably want to talk to a human being and or look at real solution services, which are partners that work on a platform typically. You get that in an enterprise ESP. And then finally, budget ESPs, they're fairly it's a low barrier to entry, right? You have a credit card, you do a free trial, and you go from there. Enterprise, typically, if you were to go to Salesforce by yourself or Lyra's by yourself, you have to talk to a salesperson, you have to negotiate a contract, you have to kind of jump through those hoops. From our standpoint, at least for Salesforce Marketing Cloud, one of the things of being an MPR DS member station is we've already negotiated that contract. We have an existing relationship with them, and you're basically able to piggyback on our negotiated rate. And we also have, you know, the support of DS station relations to assist you. So just to recap again, you know, the advantage of going to Salesforce through us is it's enterprise level. Contract negotiations are already done. There's no setup fees, no implementation fees. However, if you do want to get more sophisticated and do other things, there is a whole solution network built into Salesforce. And again, you have our station relations staff who are all sitting at the table to help you with the migration, answer your questions, put you in touch with the right people. You're not just searching a knowledge base. And as our platform of choice, obviously, as we look at our product strategy going forward, we tend to look at, can we do email benchmarks across all our stations, as well as future integration with some of our products and services. So let's get into what is in this Salesforce Marketing Cloud. What can you expect? It's Salesforce Marketing Cloud. There are just some things that we've added because you're a DS member station, but essentially on the left is just kind of a, I will allow you to look at this later, obviously, but some of the features that you'll see in Salesforce Marketing Cloud: WYSIWYG email editor, hosted images, a hosted newsletter subscriber page like you had on Pulse, welcome email templates, shared content and images at some point through NPR, triggered sends, pretty robust list management with data extensions. We'll talk about that another time. Much better robust deliverability because you'll be going out through the NPR domain. Even on Lyris HQ, we've used a shared IP. We've moved that to our own domain just for the station so that we could have better deliverability. And at some point, we will definitely do an integration with the marketing forms. It's TBD because there's quite a few things that we want to look at in that, but we do know that that's one of the major items for email service providers. So step back a little bit about one of the things that you'll see in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and that we're encouraging you to not only just move into this new platform, but really kind of rethink the way that you approach the way your templates are set up and the emails that you send out. And like our other products, core publisher marketing forms, we've really made this whole move to mobile first, which means that most people start on their cell phone and then they're going to the desktop. Responsive design allows you to have your design work on any device. And so it would be silly for us to open up Salesforce Marketing Cloud with new templates and not have them be responsive. So I want to talk a little bit about why that is important. So the bottom line is we're kind of at a tipping point. You can see the two stats on here. Most of your listeners, your audience, they're reading emails, your emails, their emails on a mobile phone. They're doing a lot of other things on a mobile phone, texting, sharing as well, but primarily emails that they view, they're seeing it on a phone. Litmus, these two graphics are from Litmus. Litmus is an email analytics and testing service. They test tons of emails across every platform, and this is their two statistics. 51% of all emails are now being opened on mobile phones. Typically, the top on a client, I think, is Apple, iPhone. I can't remember the other ones, but between Android and iPhone, you're basically seeing over half your emails open on a phone. In addition, webmail users, so that's Gmail, Yahoo, AOL, 61% are on mobile. So we're getting to the point where, like I said, they're not looking at the desktop first. And so what we're trying to encourage you is to say, you know, maybe it's time to not just repeat the templates from Pulse, which were not designed to be responsive, and it's time to update them. And as I mentioned, responsive design just means that the design is optimized whether your reader is on a mobile phone or their laptop. You're not creating multiple versions. And as part of Salesforce Marketing Cloud, we designed 5 templates that have a responsive design layout that you'll find when you go into Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And in addition, Salesforce Marketing Cloud has tons of responsive templates as well. But we wanted to get you started with some right out of the box. Another example, this is not the best images because I copied them from my phone, but just basic mobile-friendly design, just to kind of reiterate. When you're on a phone, the one on the left is a Pulse template, and you can see how there's a lot of information there, but it's kind of hard to read. And then on the right is a pretty popular newsletter, actually from the Boston Globe, that I actually read a lot, that is really optimized for a phone. It's got big call to action, it's easy to read. So just to give you an idea of what people are looking like on a phone. Here's our example of one of our responsive templates that you'll see when you log in. This is what we call a hero newsletter because of the big hero image. One of our designers, Adam, worked on these templates with me, and he actually worked on marketing forms, so you'll probably notice some similarities. But these are the templates. You're able to go in there. On the left is a desktop version. When it's viewed on a phone, it's on the right. That gives you an example. So within Salesforce Marketing Cloud, there's these concepts of email, templates, and content blocks. And one of the big frustrations with Lyris HQ was the inability for the not very sophisticated email content editor. And Salesforce Marketing Cloud solves this with content blocks. And what you'll see is something like this. You'll start with an email template from us, and this is one which we call like a GM letter. You could copy this, edit it, change it, and what you're looking at is actually not in what you would see on a computer, it's what you would see in the editing tool. Here's another one that we created for you that's responsive as well. This is more of a news feed with a head, a deck, and a call to action for stories and a different logo size. So those are emails. Those are responsive emails in the tool. What you'll see, the other option you have, you could copy these, change them, do whatever you want with them. The other option is we'll give you basically our template, which is an open skeleton, if you will, which allows you, as you can see in those sections, to go in and swap in different content blocks. And these are the content blocks we built, and a lot of them align towards newsletters or letters that we've seen within stations. And like I said, they're all responsive. They're all designed to be mobile friendly. An example here is one of the content blocks we created was a 300 by 250 ad unit, which you most likely have from your website. You would just slide that into one of those blocks. So that's essentially how it works. I'll show you a little bit more. But this is, all of these are what we actually built that will be in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. This is an example of a content block. This is actually where you put the content, okay? So those layouts give you an idea of how to build your newsletter, but then you actually go into a block. And in this block, this is a 2-column story with an image. And you can edit it WYSIWYG. You could swap out different images, but we kind of get you started. So you could build your own templates, or you could start by just copying ours. Completely up to you. But this is an example of a content block. In addition, just like Pulse, we host your newsletter subscription center, subscriber preference center. Make this a lot easier for you so you don't have to build this yourself. The update is this is now responsive. So at the end of each email in the footer, someone could click newsletter preferences, and they could go change their preferences on their phone as well as on their desktop. You can also embed this as an iframe on your website. We also have it that's a little bit different. You'll start out with this design. KUT was our pilot station, so that's why you're seeing that on the left. We will bring over your newsletter subscriptions from Lyris here as well to get you started, but you can also add fields to this. And then, like anything, we have a triggered welcome email that will go when someone submits this. You will be able to edit that, make that a series of emails. There's lots of possibilities with that, but just out of the box, we just start out with making sure you have a way to have people manage their subscriptions and get a welcome email that you can edit. So let's go into show you couple things in the demo. For the next couple minutes, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. So what is this? One. Let's do it this way. All right. So you will get a login when we sign you up, and I'm going to go in as a station admin. And just to kind of give you the lay of the land, this is typically what you'll see when you first log in. This is what's called the dashboard. Over here is our demo business unit, but you will see your own station as well as our demo. I have a couple others here as I'm showing demos, but typically you'll see your business unit here, which is your branded site. Under the welcome message, it will have your first name most likely, and you'll be able to set preferences about what you want to see here. So if you just always want to go into email and not this dashboard, you could set that here. You could show tips. This is also where a lot of the documentation, help support documents from Salesforce is located. Excellent, excellent resources. Lots of videos and best practices, not only on how to use the tools, but how to be a better campaign marketer. And so I just want to leave that with you as they have really good documentation that's always available to you. So if I just want to show you this. Most often you're probably going to have it set preference to go to email. But just to kind of give you a sense, very similar to Lyris, you have your campaigns, you would have all your emails in a calendar. But just to kind of reiterate that this is not just email and there's growth for this. Mobile marketing, social marketing, you could buy ads, more analytics. Marketing automation, which is kind of a next step in terms of email marketing down the road. Content Canvas I'll get to. And the Hub Exchange, just to kind of give you an idea of why we're excited about the platform and not necessarily that it's just an email tool. Hub Exchange is, and I'll just show this to you, this is where you're not just buying, it's like Salesforce or the Apple iTunes Store. You never just buy the software, you're able to extend it down the road with lots of different upgrades from different providers. So that's the other reason we didn't want to offer a platform that you were going to get stuck with and not be able to upgrade, or we weren't able to offer new features. And that's one of the things you get from Salesforce. You get the entire platform. So, like I said, not just email, but that said, let's go into what the email interface looks like. And so what we're looking at here is sort of the overview. It has a couple shortcuts. Creating an email, like I said, that's the email you send. The template, if you think of it as the skeleton, you could upload images. They host images just like we did in Pulse. Content areas, data extensions are what Salesforce calls their list management tool. That's a whole nother training, but I will get into how you're going to manage your list. And then, of course, reporting. So shortcuts here. This is blank because it's a test, it's a demo, so I haven't sent anything. But typically, I would see my emails that I sent, or any templates I created, or any images I uploaded, which you could see here, or any lists that I'm managing. And then over here, again, because I haven't done any sends, I would see all my past sends, anything that I have pending. This is just your overview. If I want to actually go create email, you go under content. And one thing about this, you're looking at, I'm showing you what's called the classic editor. Salesforce is actually upgrading to a, I'll show you right here, content builder, which I don't have time to go over today, but it's a little more of a WYSIWYG interface than this, and it's slowly being introduced. Will allow you to see it, and we'll do a demo of it, but for now I'm just going to show you the classic editor. So a little bit on how this works. couple things. When you log in, you will see my emails, my templates, portfolio, and my content. What this means is emails is all the emails you create and send. And right out of the box, as I mentioned, we give you 5 different ones that you could just copy and start editing. So you can preview these easily. I'm going to, a little slow, but usually you can hover over. I don't want to have to open these. Get a sense of what they look like in here. And so, like I said, the simple thing to get you started is to use our templates, copy them, edit, do what you like with them. If you wanted to, and like I said, we have a couple of things that are examples. If you wanted to create your own email, and then the other thing we give you is our shell of a template. So that's responsive. You could put whatever content blocks in there, save it as your own email, and just copy and start from there. That's getting down a level. Within my templates is this idea of content blocks that I just showed earlier. So like I said, you could start with that skeleton and use some of our content blocks. You could create these on your own, but we copy them over to your account so you can just plug and play, at least initially. You can put a headline somewhere, big image. And this is where actually this is just copy for a letter, stories. So these are components. If you really want to get crazy, you could add the components. Or, like I said, you could just start with one of our templates. If I was going to do something like this, I would copy it. And then I could go in and start editing. Now what you're looking at is the editor. And you can see I made a lot of copies, just sort of the skeleton. I could add more content blocks here. It has a preview, so you can take a look at it. It's really simple to edit a content block. You can modify it, you could clear it. I could retrieve content. I could also not use NPRDS. I can do a lot of things where I could just put in my own image. And portfolio is obviously where your images are, and I had uploaded this macaw from NPR. And this is where I could change image properties, also add copy, those kind of things, and it just puts it right in my block. So this is, you have a lot of functionality. Sometimes you might want to, again, if I have an ad unit, I might just want to modify that and put in a 300 by 50 ad unit, but the template stays the same. And then right from here, if you wanted to do a test send, so the test send to your email, you could do that as well. You could preview here, but I always do a test send. And that's basically how you create an email. As I mentioned, the portfolio, fairly simple to, you can create your own folders in any of these. So you may want to have your newsletter images, you may want to have your banner images, you might want to have a folder that's just all your ad units. It's how you want to organize it. Uploading an image is fairly easy. You can drag and drop. I'll browse. It's on my desktop. Once an image is in your portfolio, just like Pulse, you could drag it into a content block, and you're good to go. So that's the short version. That's, you know, it doesn't cover everything, but that is largely what you're looking at in terms of creating emails. Be happy to talk through this more with you, but I just want to give you a preview. So let me go back to our slides. All right. Oops. All right. I get it here. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah so she can walk you through our migration and support schedule. Great.
Let me see how I do this.
I can take it back.
Oh, you can do it.
Okay. While I'm making the transition, I do see a question came in asking about, is this included in our DS fees, or is there an extra cost attached to it? The answer to that question is just like Lyris, there is an extra cost attached to it. We had really hoped that we could give you the exact pricing details today, but unfortunately with dust settling, with Bob Kemp leaving, we're doing some due diligence to get final sign-off all the way up the chain to make sure everything's copacetic here. So we will be sharing those details soon, probably within the next week or so, but the kind of headline is everything should be staying in line with what you're paying right now for Lyris. So I think everyone should be able to see my screen now. Okay. So Jenny gave you the overview of what Salesforce Marketing Cloud is, but what does this mean for you on Lyris and moving off of Lyris onto the new system? So first things first, our timeline. Our contract with Lyris is ending, so we do need to get everybody moved by February. So we're really starting now. We're going to have a cycle that's going to start a little bit later this month, and then we're going to power through until our deadline where we have to be off of Lyris. I'll talk about the cycles in just a minute with you guys. The other thing to just be aware of between now and the end of February is that when Lyris, our contract with Lyris ends and we lose access to Lyris, that means we lose access to everything in Lyris. So if you have images in Lyris or archived emails in Lyris that you want to save out, now is the time to start thinking about doing that, because that is a cutoff. So for the migration, we've mapped out kind of the core training that we think everyone will need to go through and tasks that you'll need to do to get set up and running in the new system. And it's looking like it'll be a 4-week process for most people to get fully trained and get your basic newsletters and basic templates customized for what you need to get started. For a station that has a larger list and has several newsletters and a large number of segments, it's likely going to take a bit longer than that. So I'm talking about planning out schedules. If you think that you fall into that category, we're probably going to nudge you and hope that you can start sooner in October or November, if at all possible. If you just have a medium to small size list and a single newsletter, the process should be a little simpler for you and you should, without any trouble, be able to complete it within the 4-week cycle. So what the cycle is going to consist of is we're going to have, for the first 3 weeks, we're going to have weekly group trainings to get you up to speed on how to do everything that you're going to need to know in Salesforce Marketing Cloud to start being able to set up newsletters and manage your lists and send emails. Jenny alluded to Salesforce Marketing Cloud as a really powerful platform that one could do a lot with, but we're just going to focus on, you need to be able to continue to manage your emails and lists. So that's what we're going to focus on for getting you up and running. As you probably saw when Jenny was clicking around, it's a very different interface than Lyris, and the system uses different language than Lyris does. So we expect that there is going to be a bit of a learning curve for everybody. Jenny alluded to, there are data extensions instead of lists, and you need to get bookmark the email section and things like that. So we do want you to plan on carving out a bit of time during your cycle to really dive into it so that you can get up to speed on understanding it, so you know how to manage things once you start sending out of the new system. So in addition to the training, we'll have some open Q&A calls. You'll also have access, in addition to access to us here at NPR, I'm going to be working with you. I'm also extremely lucky Janine Williamson is also going to be helping me. So either Janine or myself will be kind of a main point of contact for you as you're making the move. When you have questions,
You also have access to the wealth of knowledge that Salesforce Marketing Cloud has in their documentation and training center. Jenny alluded to the 360 site. So there's lots of ways that you'll be able to spend some time getting up to speed during your cycle and after, as you're getting used to the new tools. So when we hand you your account, we're trying to pre-game everything as much as possible so that technically one could send an email from the moment that we hand you the account. The reality is you're going to want to do customization. You're going to want to make sure that your newsletters, since they're in a new responsive template that's different from Pulse, you're going to want to spend some time setting them up and making sure that you're happy with the look and feel. So there's definitely going to be setup time, but we are going to make sure that you have an account that's configured to your station. It's set so any emails are sent, say that they're coming from your station. Your your master list from Lyris will be in there. If you have more than one list in Lyris, to get your account set up, we're just moving the master one, but you will be able to move additional lists over if you need to when you're getting up and running. And we'll also have the basics of your preference center and a welcome email ready to go. So you're not starting from scratch. There's a lot in there, but you will likely need to customize a lot before you're ready to go. So a couple things to start thinking about now before you get going is, one, thinking about the lists and segments that you have in right now. As I think everyone knows, sort of the power of these tools, these email tools, is the ability to segment off of a single master list. And that lets you do pretty powerful things when you take the time to map out what you want to do, where you can have the subsets of your list who are subscribed to your newsletters, the subsets of your list that you need to send special mailings to, like a membership renewal mailing. But then you can also think about other things. Are there things that are interesting to see that overlap what you're sending? Maybe you want to send take a look at your newsletter subscribers and send one email to newsletter subscribers who aren't members and one email to newsletter subscribers who are members to have different messages about giving to the station. And segmentation, when everyone's on what single list, allows you to do those kinds of things. So now is a good time to look at Lyris and see what you have for lists and see what you have for segments, and start thinking about, is everything that is in there things I'm still actively using, and do I need? I know we use Lyris here for our emails that we send out to stations, and every once in a while we'll have a special email that will just, we don't have an existing segment for, and we'll just upload another list to get it out really quickly, which isn't the best practice. The best practice is having it be a segment on the main list, but then what happens is you have lists in there that you sent an email to 2 years ago, and you really don't have a need to send another email to that specific list again. So if you fall into that category, it's good to take a look and see, is there anything in there that you set up at one point but you don't need anymore, and which are the things that you do need, so that when you come to your migration, you'll know, I need my master list and I need this list, and these are the segments that are really important to the things that I do. And then these other segments here, I don't need, and I don't need to worry about moving over. That's a good thing to start thinking about now before you get going. The other thing that we need you to be doing right away is Jackie McBride is going to be sending to everybody who is currently using Lyris a link to a setup form that we have, which is really a very quick and simple form for you to indicate your preferences on the cycle that you want to be in. The dates are on the form. Essentially, it's one cycle a month. There's an October 1 and November 1. January and February, there's a break around the holidays. We know things get tough between holidays and end of year giving and those kinds of things. But we're going to send you that form, and if you can complete that as soon as possible, it's going to help us. We need to map out, schedule you into a cycle. As I mentioned before, we're going to give preference to those stations that have more complicated setups in Lyris, bigger lists, more lists with more segments and more newsletters, because we know that if you fall into that category, you're going to need some time between now and February to make sure everything's set up so you can continue to do all those things when Lyris goes away. But we do want to work around everyone's preferences as much as possible. So the sooner Jackie has that information of your scheduling conflicts and what your preferences are, the sooner that we can schedule everybody. We're also asking for a main point of contact at each station to be our main go-to person as we're migrating you. Of course, if there are more people on your team who regularly manage emails, need to be in the loop and in all the trainings. They are very welcome to be, but we'll just have at least one person that we can interface with to manage the project. And we also want you to confirm an email address that you want attached to your first login for your Salesforce marketing forms, marketing forms, oh my God, Salesforce Marketing Cloud account. I think I might have brushed past it quickly in an earlier slide. Your account comes with one single login that you can share among your team to manage emails inside your account. If you need more than one login because you have more than one person that needs to be in there a lot and sharing becomes cumbersome, we can set you up, but there is an additional fee to us from Salesforce Marketing Cloud for additional logins that we pass on to you. I don't know really the number of what it is. It's an annual fee. It's a couple $100 a year, I think.
It's $275 per account. So, and that's annual.
So that's if you need more than one. If you can live with one, that's included. So what we need out of the gate is what do you want that first one to be set up on? If more than one person needs to log in, it should be an email address that more than one person can access, because there is password resets, and there's also, first time you log in, you have to kind of confirm that you're the right person, so it emails you a little code, so you need to be able to go get that email as well. So fill out that form. Jackie McBride will follow up with you to let you know, to confirm what cycle you're in, and then give you next steps from there. I believe that is all that I have, so we have some time for questions.
So, and we should probably, like I mentioned, everything we showed you today is probably just a piece of what is available in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, but we didn't want to kind of overwhelm you. We wanted to give you an idea of what's coming and then also prepare you for sort of migration. But let's see what some of your questions are. So, should we start with? Okay. How do you export, import user profiles from, as an example, from Memsys? It's the same concept that you do with Pulse, where at least initially, it would be importing a CSV file. You can import it through a FTP site. There are this idea of data extensions, which is a list. Salesforce has other options for you, but at least for migration, we're going to show you the quickest, easiest way to get your lists into Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and it basically operates the same way as Pulse, where you're importing a CSV file. When the master list, when we move over the master list from Pulse, will the segments be moved as well? We're moving over the master list that has your newsletter subscriptions, so that it lines up with your new profile preference page, so that your newsletter subscriptions line up with what people have signed up for you. Many of you have multiple segments. What's most likely, we're going to move over the list. It will have your data. You're probably going to have to recreate your segments in Salesforce Marketing Cloud outside the newsletters. That's why we're asking you to go through your segments. If you have 10 of them and you're really only using 3, let us know. You know, if you need help with them, that's what we want to know. We'll train you on it, but there's no reason for you to create new segments or bring over segments that you no longer use. But the data of your master list with the headings will come over. Are all the ads used in this platform 300 by 250? No, that's just an example. So like I said, when we give you 5, we're giving you 5 email templates to get you started. Largely we did that just to make it easy. So the easiest ad unit for a lot of people that they already have is a 300 by 250. So we created a content block for that as an example, but you can certainly create your own content blocks, put in whatever image size you want, save that. So if you have a different ad unit size, you could import that as an image, save it as a content block, and then reuse it every time. Let's see. Ballpark the cost of the service, as we mentioned, just within the time frame of the last 2 weeks, I guess, with Bob leaving. We largely know what we're doing. We will definitely know within the next 2 weeks as Jackie starts to talk to you. We just didn't have enough information to make the webinar today, but like we mentioned, it's largely in line with what we're offering today with Lyris HQ. To what extent can you modify the raw HTML and the email templates? So again, you always can go into the HTML. Whether or not you want to is kind of up to you. But yes, you can import an HTML. Most likely, setting it up for your staff, you're going to want to create content blocks for each component that you use, or copy ours and modify those. But yes, you can modify the HTML. It depends on how much skill set on your staff. We have definitely, it came up a couple times with our pilot with KUT, who was really wonderful to pilot with us. And that's also one of those things where creating HTML emails, not always the easiest thing. And we also wanted to look for a platform that Salesforce had that had a service level of integrators that do this kind of work in case you want more sophisticated designs. So that's awesome. If we decide to move to Salesforce for all donor management systems, will there be any support for migration from another, like Allegiance?
So this is not a Salesforce database. This is purely the email marketing. So that is, if you were to move to Salesforce, that would be completely separate from what this service is, and that would be something that you'd engage directly with Salesforce to do.
Right. So, and if you think about it, like I said, the branding changed. It's ExactTarget, and they branded it Salesforce Marketing Cloud, but it's largely its own tool. Okay.
So it's the email marketing. It's not the
database.
CRM.
Will the images stored in the Pulse library also go in February or just Lyris? The images will go away. Everything hosted, all images are hosted by Lyris on their servers. And they will go away. So the images you want, you can download them, and as soon as we give you access to Salesforce Marketing Cloud, it's fairly simple to batch import images. The reason we're not doing them for you because we don't know what images you still need. So that's one thing you want to consider. But like I said, it's fairly simple to import a batch of images because they're going to be hosted and sent through Salesforce. What will happen to all our archive newsletters sent via Pulse? We link to them on our website and social media where the links still work. No, again, same with images. Once the service is gone, any links to that service is also gone. You can, the one thing you might want to look through that, archive newsletters, depends on how far back you want to go back. But what you can do is maybe save them as PDFs and put them on your server and link to them that way. But typically, no, anything that's hosted on Lyris' servers, once the contract's up, it's gone. With a Pulse newsletter front end or something like it still continue to exist, we'll be building our newsletters directly in Salesforce. Yes, as part of this, we're sunsetting Pulse, which is your newsletter preference page today, and also the tool where you created your emails. So most of our stations moved over to Lyris HQ and worked out of that interface, but Some still prefer the Pulse interface. That will be sunsetting, mainly because it integrates with Lyris HQ, so none of the APIs or none of it will work after our contract is done. What's our next question? In the data that comes over from your master list, yes, we'll include the list the user is subscribed to. We're going to do a migration of your list just for newsletter subscribers. We'll no longer be able to, yes, that's true. Once you are migrated, once we have that migration, you will not be able to, once our contract is up, there's no logging into Pulse or Lyris HQ. Anything to do, there are a couple of questions about integrating with databases. We would love to talk to you in more depth. It's a little out of scope for this conversation, but we'll talk soon. Is that it? Do we have anything else? What are those ties? Do I have everything? Okay.
And the thing that's come in so far. So yeah. Again, just to reiterate, be on the lookout for an email from Jackie. She's going to get that prep later today, and for the end of the week, you will definitely see that. And as soon as you get that, please fill out the form as soon as you can so we can start getting things scheduled.
Yeah, we're really excited. We think it's a great platform we've been using for the last couple of years. It is a learning curve, but with any kind of campaign software, it's a learning curve. So, but we're really excited. We think that we're at kind of the cusp of what you can actually do with this software. And we really look forward to working with you all and answering your questions, concerns. Let us know. Happy to talk to you.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I am excited to be working with you. Get everyone up to speed on this new system. I think it'll be exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.